Welcome to Power Lunch Live. I'm Rhett Power, your host. It is great to be with you here on Thursday afternoon. The point of the program is to bring today's thought leaders, best-selling authors, people who are doing amazing work in the world that can help us get better at what we do, so that we want to learn from them. That's the whole point of the show. Now, we broadcast on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, to name a few. And so the other fun thing about the show is that it's interactive. The way it's active is if you participate, get on the keyboard, type your questions or comments so that we can share that information with Jen Coken, who's our guest today, and we can get to your burning questions. Now, if you like the program, give it a like or share so that your network can benefit from these conversations. And we, of course, can grow our audience. That's always a good thing. I've got Jen Coken today. She is the author, and she's an author, best-selling author, life coach, and speaker, and a recovering stand-up comedian. I think that's the best title you have. I love that. She's author of Embrace the Ridiculousness. I am so glad I could say that word. That I was worried I wasn't going to be able to get that out of my mouth. And she helps CEOs get stuff done. And so, Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it is, and we've been trying to do this for a long time. So I'm glad we finally got to do it. So, wow, we are in some weird times.
Yeah, we are in some really weird times.
What's your take on all that? I mean, is this just, how have you been handling it? How have you handled the stress, the anxiety, the sort of rethinking of you've probably had to rethink your entire business in a lot of ways. And so to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm lucky on one end because mostly I always coach my clients virtually, but I also am out there speaking a lot. And in particular have been part of a year-long program with a company. And of course, there's a travel ban. So we're going, okay, how do we take 5 days of content into 6 2-hour blocks of time over a 2-week period to be able to finish out the program? Personally, I've been isolating at home since March 10th. I got a little bit of a cold and I just wasn't feeling good. So I was staying away from people. And then this whole thing happened. From my clients' perspective, a lot of what I've been helping them through is the anxiety of dealing with their health, the health of their family, their company, their business. And so how I've personally been able to, I guess, find solace or find the good in this is turning it around and going, okay, what can I provide of value to my community? You know, I'm on Facebook Live every morning from 9 to 9:10 with my bedhead and my coffee with Java. I'm like, literally bedhead. Like at some point, I'm going to look like a troll doll, I feel like, because my hair's getting so long. And I think the other thing that I've been thinking about, too, is I've been taking time to bring stillness into my life. And this is what I've been coaching my clients to do. I've always been a meditator, but underscoring that to them that you need to give your brain a rest, sleeping with the phone in the other room. So I'm not one to pick it up, turning off the news. And, I have a whole 10 tips on my YouTube channel about how to stay sane during the pandemic. And the number one way, Rhett, is to wear pants every day, not sweatpants, but actual pants.
Why regular pants? Sweatpants are so comfortable.
Okay. 2 reasons. One is we've heard of the freshman 15. You don't want to gain the COVID 15. That's number one. So if you have a button pressing into your belly, it will let you know. But number 2, if you have a routine in the morning, whether you get up and put regular pants on or a dress or whatever you'd normally wear and shower and put on your makeup, etc., your brain is starting to tell you you're going to be more productive. And clients that have followed this with me have come back to me and said, oh my God, I was way more productive when I actually got dressed yesterday morning than I was today when I've been in my exercise clothes all day waiting to go out for a run.
I mean, it's as lighthearted as that is, but it's serious. I was on a call yesterday afternoon with a psychologist, and that's what she was saying. She was saying there's some real benefit to giving yourself that structure that you normally follow, right? And it gives you some control back It gives you some structure, gives you some parameters, and it helps you sort of focus in on what this is your work day, right?
Exactly.
And this is your time to be productive. There's a time to cut off and do things that are good for you. But yeah, I agree. I think that as funny as that is, there's a lot of truth in that.
And what you just said is important. Have a cutoff time for work. Cut off it, because I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm busier than a one-armed paper hanger. And I don't know why. Like all of a sudden I'm in back-to-back meetings with very little breathing room. I got to go outside for 20 minutes yesterday. And so have a cutoff time, particularly for people with families at home. Plan your day the next day. We can't really plan too far out, but talk with your kids about, okay, when's mommy or daddy, or mommy and mommy, daddy and daddy going to be available? We're going to have lunch together as a family. We're going to have dinner together as a family. And I'll tell you something else, Rhett, because I was doing some research on this. The number one thing people can do to stay sane during a pandemic is journal, believe it or not. NASA did research on long-term isolation. And the number one thing that made a difference was people journaling. And it's such a girl thing to do. You could write a letter to yourself. You could just recount the events of the day. What did you do that day? So that's super important. And the other thing I tell people is all those projects, you're like, oh, I have more time. I'm going to go organize my spice rack. Leave it for the weekend, because that's when you would normally do it. So push those projects to the weekend so you can have a regular structure to your weekdays. Because our weekdays and weekends, I don't know what day of the week it is. I'm going to buy the underwear, with the days of the week that I used to have in high school, because I don't know. So I can look down and see,
I love it. I don't know. Does Amazon even ship underwear now? Is that essential?
I don't know. I don't even know if they still sell it, but I honestly have been thinking about seeing if I can buy it. I think underwear is essential. I think we should be wearing underwear. I don't know. Maybe for some it's not.
We could go there, but maybe we shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, my other book is called "When I Die, Take My Panties." So there's a reason that I always, have to sneak underwear.
I was going to bring that up. I think that's something I wanted to ask about. So what scares you right now about what's going on, and what's encouraging to you?
I think it's really the things that not a lot scares me. The thing that winds up scaring me is the unknown. And I catch myself noticing when am I scared about something that's happening right now? Because right now I'm sheltering at home. I'm not sick. Thank God no one in my family is sick. None of my truly immediate circle of friends, but I do have a friend in California and someone in Colorado who had COVID-19 and are recovering. So I'm very blessed that way. But when I think about, as you mentioned earlier, I've had to pivot my business. Okay, what's the next 3, 4, 6, 9, 12 months going to look like? When I think about those things in the future, I'll start to get scared. The other thing, quite honestly, I'm scared about is we're going to go back to business as usual. And this will not be a wake-up call for our society and for leaders. I really believe right now those leaders and companies that are going to find themselves flourishing when we come out of this are those that continue the behaviors that they probably hadn't thought about before, which was number one, building trust and connecting with their team to check in. How are you doing? How's it going? That kind of thing is the basis and the cornerstone of all great companies and relationships. People don't leave companies, they leave managers. If you don't trust your manager or you don't feel like you can be vulnerable with your manager, most employees are going to be dissatisfied and leave. So I'm afraid we're going to go back to normal. And I've said this multiple times, there's no going back to normal. This whole thing has altered us. We can find our new natural, I'd like to say our new natural flow. I want to make sure that we learn from this and carry those lessons forwards. And some of the things that have been heartening to me, I don't know if you've seen John Krasinski's Some Good News. Have you caught his show?
Brilliant.
You have?
Brilliant.
Oh my God, brilliant. I love it. And I was sharing about this with you before we got on air. You're in Brazil right now, and so there have been on the beaches. There was like 100 of these rare Brazilian tortoise babies that just were hatched. And the gentleman who takes care of that beach said he's never seen anything like it. It's usually 1 or 2. Why? Because there aren't people with dogs, and dogs tend to dig things up. And so the dogs would dig up the turtle eggs. And so I'm hopeful, the brown cloud in Denver has disappeared. People can see the second set of mountains in California. I'm hopeful that this will also wake us up to being better stewards, not only of each other, but of our environment and the animals and all animals, insects, et cetera, that live on the planet.
I was having this discussion the other day with somebody about our culture in the U.S. in general, and how we value this culture of work, right? And how, I guess what I worry about, are we going to go back to that, where you're completely connected all the time. You're scared to take your vacation. I know when I worked in corporate America, I had vacation time, but boy, was it discouraged to use it, and so I wonder if this changes us and changes companies and leadership to understand. I was talking to another conversation the other day, and I thought it was brilliant, because he said, I've had to change the way I lead, because I realize now, even though we're all working on Zoom and we're all working via, email and all, I realize that everybody's got their kids home. And so you've got to feed them lunch, right? They're doing their school online, but the work day is actually shifted, right? And I've got to allow for some of that time in the middle of the day and other parts of the day for you to take care of your life stuff, because everybody's working from home, and you've got your whole family there all day long, 24 hours a day. So, so really take into account the human toll of this, or the other things that are going to now be interfere with your productivity in part of your day. So I thought that was interesting, but I just wonder, do you think we're going to go back? I mean, you kind of hit on it a little bit. Are we going to go back to this sort of overdrive of just being work, and not really slowing down a little bit?
I think the worst of companies will, and I don't mean worst like they're bad actors, but I mean there will be people and organizations, companies, et cetera, that go back to quote unquote business as usual, expecting you to have FaceTime in the office, expecting you not to take your vacation, et cetera. And I really feel like those companies of the future that are going to lead us and that are thriving toward the kind of society and work world that we all want to live in are going to be those that learn from this and have pivoted and become more compassionate and become more inclusive and become more creative in their thinking about how they do work in the future. You're right. This society is built on industrialization, factory work all the time, 24 hours, shift work. You go from that to the more intellectual side of America. We still carry that with us. And it always has struck me when I would go to other countries, you meet at 12, you meet at 12:30, you have lunch, you have 2 hours for lunch. It's okay. I also feel like it differentiates where you're at in the country. So I was in DC for about 11 years and moved to Colorado. And when I got out there, in DC, people say, what do you do? And they ask you that because they want to know, who do you know I can know?
Right.
Who can you introduce me to? And am I better than you? I don't think that's conscious for everybody, but it's a comparison. We all do it.
I meant to ask you that, by the way, since we both have DC connections. But we'll get to that later.
Okay. And then when I moved to Colorado, people would say, what do you do? They meant, do you road bike? Do you mountain bike? Do you hike 14ers? Do you snow ski? Do you snowboard? And I remember the last job that I was with before I moved back, my boss and I used to go for about an hour and a half bike ride in Boulder, Colorado, talking strategy about the campaign and what I was working on. And that was our way to de-stress at least once a month. It was something I looked forward to incredibly. But that was really, really valued, being outside. It was not unheard of. I had a deputy and he had a share in a house in Vail. I think it was in Vail. And if it was a snow day, I'd get a call from him. I'm heading up to the mountains. I'm like, great. As long as your work gets done, I do it. Go do what feeds your soul. Because if we're not feeding our souls, and if companies aren't allowing us to feed our souls, that increases our unhappiness.
Yep. Plain and simple. Can't say
Plain
any
and
better
simple.
than that.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think the big change is going to be the companies that understand that and learn from this. Because I think, and I haven't heard that these conversations are going on yet, but you know, if this order is given and my company said, well, it's time to come back to work, you can come back to work in your cubby hole. I might have to say, look, I've got my grandmother, I've got my mother living with me. She's 75. I've got a son with asthma. I don't know that I want to go back to work in that same way, right? Because every time I walk out the door, until we have a vaccine, I don't know that I'm not putting their life at risk. And I've been doing this work for 2 months at home. Can I stay at home and just continue my job? I mean, and what is the answer? What's the company answer to that? And I
Yeah.
don't know that there's a lot of companies are planning for that conversation yet. And I think there are going to be a lot of people that say, hey, I'm not comfortable going back.
I think there are a lot in the HR world. I was on a call a couple of weeks ago with the HR Alliance. It's a
That's
big
good.
network, and they are in the HR world beginning to think about this. And we not only talked about, the fact that FaceTime is so big in many companies, you really should be at the office. We not only talked about how to be more forgiving and compassionate and allow people more time to work from home, because I think many companies were fearful of that because they wouldn't know, are people really working or are they not working?
Right.
And so now they realize people are working. There's also the other end of that spectrum. I have, some clients I've heard from that their companies are like, well, now that you have more time, let's do long-term strategic planning. And why don't you create your individual development plan when their work week has gone from 5 days to 4 to save the company money, but they're still expecting their employees to work and manage what they had been doing over 5 days. So I think that's one piece of it. The other thing that I've been thinking about is I think if companies are willing to allow people to work from home, you're opening up the work opportunities to a whole workforce of people with different abilities, people who are confined to wheelchairs and perhaps don't have a van to get to work, people with neurological disorders that have seizures or have, anxiety that's been diagnosed by a doctor and need more time at home. You're opening up a possibility for people to work and be productive and contribute in our world that we hadn't thought about before.
Yeah. What is this a good time to hire a coach, you think?
I think it's a great time to hire a coach because I think.
What is your pitch then? Because I think I can sort of envision. I haven't solicited business in a while, but in a couple months. But I imagine that the comeback to that as well. I mean, we're tight, money's tight. I don't know that I can afford it. I mean, what would you say?
I mean, it really varies person to person. And I'm not out here selling for the most part. Like I'm doing a free webinar today and next week on managing your anxiety. I'm really going to my community and saying, how can I provide value? There's so many resources out there. Like, what are people missing? Is there something I can provide that you're not getting? So I'm doing, top 10 tips to manage your day next week for another organization and dealing with anxiety for another one. But anyway, I think in this time, I want to find out from people, what are the goals you want to achieve? Why now? Why, I talked to somebody this week. He's like, you know what? I realize I work by myself. I'm a solopreneur and I have a company I want to launch and I don't have somebody to hold me accountable. How do we do that? And I'm like, well, we can do that. Talk to me about what your budget is. What's comfortable for you right now, and let's work it out so that you can get to where you want to go. And then a couple months down the road, when the economy is better, let's talk about getting my rates back to where they would have been before this happened. I want to work it out with people because I want to contribute. Probably shouldn't be saying that on the Power Lunch Live, but I don't. I really want people to be succeeding. What's that?
No, I think that's okay. I think that's a great approach. To meet people
you have
where
to
they
meet
are.
Where they're at. Yeah.
Right. Well, great minds think alike. We said the same thing.
Oh, we did.
So in embrace the ridiculousness, talk about how that can apply right now.
So it really can, because this is like a little pocket guide. I said I should have made it like a little tiny book. You know, those little those little tiny books you get when you're in line at the bookstore. Because what I did is I tried to find. I do a blog, a couple times a month. There was a period there where I wasn't, because I was doing more on LinkedIn, believe it or not. I was trying out the posts and posting every day. But I tried to gather my top 12 blogs that I thought would be great lessons. And I say to people, when you're stuck, just literally page through it. Oh, how do I play big without burning out? Let me find out what Jen is recommending here, because what I do is I talk usually about my own life and where I played big without burning out, and then I give people very actionable items. I spent 25 years in politics, so I am very much about actions, plans, practices, reflection, not just mindset. You have to start with mindset, but if you have an aha moment and you don't put it to practice and to use, it's absolutely no good. Okay, how do I play big without burning out? Let me grab that one today. So this is really a very hands-on toolkit. I call it Embrace the Ridiculousness, a pocket guide to being a better you, so that you can throw it in your bag or your, briefcase when you do eventually go to work, or keep it on your desk or out of the hands of the kids so they're not drawing in it with crayons, and use it that way.
Well, where'd the title come from?
Oh, that's a good story.
Do tell.
Well, I used to lead programs for a big personal growth and development company, like a Tony Robbins type of company.
Mm-hmm.
And I had somebody in my course, and he was really struggling. And as I was coaching him, and we got through his obstacles and we really figured out his why and what he really wanted in his life, I'm like, well, how would you phrase that? He goes, I would be embracing the ridiculousness of life. And it always stuck with me. So when I launched my company, what was this, 2016, so almost 4 years ago, because I used to do stand-up comedy pretty regularly, and I am a recovering stand-up comedian, because one of my key values is playfulness. Me and my clients have to have fun. If I'm a keynote or I'm leading a workshop, we've got to have fun. Like you said in the beginning, what I said about wearing pants was lighthearted, but there's a message behind it. And I said, well, what better way when people are doubting themselves, when they're at their lowest, if I can help them look at life as these ridiculous moments that were completely unplanned and you were unprepared for, and you were doing the best you could with the tools you had, that's called embrace the ridiculousness of life.
It's a kind of a great way to look at life, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, easier said than done sometimes, even for me. I got my people on speed dial. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all butterflies and unicorns over here.
I mean, you kind of have to keep your sanity, I think.
Yeah, especially now.
Yeah, no doubt. You talked about your first book, When I Die, Take My Panties, and that was a book about your mom, right?
Yeah, it was when my mom passed away from ovarian cancer in 2011. After she had it for over 5 years, and she was misdiagnosed for a year before they finally figured it out, and they figured it out by accident. I knew nothing about ovarian cancer. We knew nothing about it. It is the deadliest gynecological cancer of all of them, because most women don't understand the signs and symptoms, so they're diagnosed too late. And my mom worked for NASA. My mom was a school teacher. My mom made a huge difference in inner city schools, bringing curriculum to these kids by way of the space program. Like, let's get them engaged with the space program and have kids have the opportunity to learn. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, I'm committed that your death make as big of a difference as your life. So when I wrote the first iteration, which was shortly after she died, it was it was my process to move through grief. But it became, yes, there was the framework of talking about what I learned, taking care of my mom and being with my mom and what I learned from her. But I also realized my own life and the experiences I had had and some of the shenanigans that I got into were all prepping me for that moment to be with her. And it really is a book meant to inspire people to live their best life now, instead of waiting for something bad like the pandemic or somebody dying to happen, to wake up and realize, wow, I should be doing more with my life. I'm not following my dreams. I'm still resentful of that person from 5th grade. And why am I harboring ill will toward my friend Debbie Herman? Why? You know?
Well, you've let it go now, right?
I have. Me and Debbie had a conversation not too long ago, a couple of years ago.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
What else can people take away from that book in terms of I mean, how would you apply it to this?
Well, I think a couple of ways. One is to really look at life as an opportunity to learn. What
Okay.
can I learn from this situation? And that's what I kept thinking about with my mom. What am I here to learn from this? People have often said to me, would you love it if your mom was still alive? And of course, right? Of course I would. However, I would only wish for that if everything I learned about myself and her and the way I relate to people, I could still retain that knowledge. For example, that woman didn't have a bucket list. You know, her life was about her family, 4 kids, 9 grandkids. Now we have, I don't even know how many great grandkids. We have a lot of kiddos in the family. And that's what she was all about. And I always thought that she didn't really pursue her dreams or go for it, and that she might be resentful. And when I looked back at my own life and wow, I had this criticism of her, this critique. How can I turn that mirror back? I realized there were a lot of things that were on my bucket list that I was too scared to go for. Stand-up comedy was one of them, right? Like getting out in front of people and performing, that sort of thing. Or thinking that my mother, seemed to be like a feather in the wind, always blown around and really not standing for something, which wasn't the case at all. Again, it all came back to family from her. That was one of the key pieces. So I think people can buy the book and read it and get inspired to live their life now. And also there's lessons throughout the book like that, and like other ones of don't be a victim of this whole thing. Don't ask why me. It just doesn't get you anything. You can have it over for dinner, have a few drinks, but don't go to sleep with it, because you'll wake up with it in your brain the next morning.
Right. It starts to dictate everything you do, right? And then
it does, because it creates a new neural pathway. This upset temper tantrum of a 5-year-old. Oh my God, why is this happening to me? I can't get toilet paper. I can't, all these things are so inconvenient. That's a new neural pathway that you're going to wake up with the next day. And we've got to catch our brain activity, because we have on average 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, 80% of which are negative.
How do we stop that?
Can't, unless you die. You could. There's one time, Rhett, I'm glad you asked that question.
Got me.
Yeah, but you can catch it. The reason you have all these negative thoughts is because your brain wants to keep the thing it's a brain of alive, you. So it's predicting danger and threat. It's automatic. So you can start to notice your mood, your mental state, your attitude, your feelings, and notice, are they reactive, what I call below the line? And if they're below the line and you're just succumbing to them, stop yourself, literally give yourself a timeout, take some deep breaths, go, okay, this is the situation right now. I'm sheltered at home. I think I wrote in my journal today, day 37, sheltering at home, and what am I going to create today in the face of my current circumstances? And there's lots of examples of Nelson Mandela in jail, 17 years. He thrived in the face of those horrible circumstances. Senator McCain, war camp, thrived in the face of those horrible. There's so many examples of that. So what are you going to do with this one life you have? And who are you going to be moment by moment? The game is catching the negative thought. Okay, great. Thank you. Who am I going to be? Am I going to be joyful, happy, creative, quiet, peaceful, make a difference with people? You always get a moment of choice.
Doesn't it take a lot of self-awareness to do that, though? I mean,
absolutely.
And so many of us aren't, or we're not great at that. I mean, are there some ways that you can, or some advice on how people can start catching those? I mean, because I think you have to. I mean, you're absolutely right. That's the key, is to just catch those thoughts when you have them. But I mean, can you make a list when you think? I mean, can you break it down and keep a little notebook with you and say, Oh, I just noticed that I was thinking this way, and sort of train your brain in some way to not have those kind of negative thoughts all the time.
I think there's a couple of things you can do. I think meditation goes a long way to quieting your mind. That's number one. Number two, there's a 17th century philosopher. Oops, hold on. Something just broke and the cats wanted to get it. Okay, get out of the way, dude. Don't eat that. My office mates, my two office. Okay, come here, Kevin. He's going to join us for just a minute.
Hey, Kevin.
So we don't eat things. Hello. Hi.
Hi, Kevin.
Kevin and Ivan, stop it, Kevin. But anyway, so meditation is one. I think secondly, as I was saying, there's 17th century philosopher Blaise Pascal, who basically said that the demise of mankind is that we can't be alone with our thoughts. Take time to be alone with your thoughts so that you actually can take the time to look out the window at a tree and notice what you're thinking. But I think the third thing is to set a reminder in your phone, simply asking the question, what am I thinking right now? Because the issue is that we're not only not aware, we're not aware, we're not aware.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it makes a whole lot of sense. So we've got a couple things. Siobhan, thank you for joining us. I want to start my business in consulting. I don't know if that's a question. Well, good luck with that, Siobhan. I will appreciate you chiming in. Not really a question; it was more of a comment.
Okay.
But all right. Well, this has been interesting, and I do thank you very much for being on the program.
I appreciated being on here, and thanks for engaging in the conversation.
And tell people, can anybody join your chats or your morning coffee?
Yeah, anybody. I'm on Facebook, Jennifer Coken. Just look for hashtag Java with Jen, 9 a.m. to 9:10, 9:15, depending, in the morning, East Coast time, I should say that. And then usually I'll pop the good ones up to my YouTube channel, and you can just search YouTube for hashtag Java with Jen. So they can definitely join that. I have go to my website.
What do you talk about? What do you talk about with Java and Jen?
It really, hey, dude, stop eating that. Sorry, we got a situation. It depends on the day, but what I've been doing this week is actually taking moments from the Embrace the Ridiculousness and reading some of those chapters. Mm-hmm. But it's also really whatever's on my mind and what people want to hear. And I always start off with a question: how's the weather inside? And what I mean by that is it sunny? Is it cloudy with a chance of rain? Is it stormy? Because I think that's easier than saying, how you doing? Fine. Well, how's the weather inside? I don't know. Today I'm a little cloudy. So I'm checking in with my peeps to see about that. People will ask me questions, how to deal with it, how do I respond to those? And then it's basically whatever's on my mind for the day.
Nice. I like it.
Yep.
Well, hopefully people can join you in that. And your books on sale, I'm sure, in all bookstores, right? You can go right to your local bookstore right now and get it.
Right now, and go ahead and buy it. No, go on Amazon. You can buy them both. I am doing a webinar today and next Thursday, 2 p.m. for free, all about dealing with anxiety. You can go to my website, and there's a pop-up, www.jencoken.com, and there's a pop-up that will come up. I'm also offering 30-minute free coaching sessions. And again, if you go to my website, it says schedule a discovery call or something. I just want to provide value to people. So if folks want to reach out that way, they can. And if they want to get on my mailing list, they can text my name, Jen Coken, JenCoken, to 22828. That's 22828, and just follow the prompts.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for spending some time with us today here on the Power Lunch. We'll be back tomorrow with Caroline Santiago, and we're going to be talking about how coaching is going to change after this traditional executive coaching. And anyway, that'll be an interesting conversation. And thank you very much for joining us. You can also, I've got a special conversation tomorrow afternoon on a Zoom call. I've got Landon Donovan, U.S. soccer star Landon Donovan. On that call, we're going to talk about his life in soccer and how his upbringing and now his new job at San Diego as coach of the San Diego MLS team. And so please join us for that. You can find that. I just posted that on LinkedIn today. There's a special sign up to join that Zoom call tomorrow afternoon. And until then, you guys have a great day. And thank you for joining the Power Lunch. You can find the schedule on powerlunch.live. Powerlunch.live. Thanks. Have a good day.